What if Nagato was actually right? He believed the only way to stop human hatred was to give the world a trauma it could never forget. In the next 10 minutes, you will see how close pain came to actually sagging the world through total destruction. We spend our lives cheering for heroes because they offer a comfortable lie. That goodness is enough. But the hero only has to save the day. The villain is the one who attempts to save the future. Nagato wasn't just a ninja. He was a political realist who realized that the world was addicted to a will it couldn't afford. He didn't want to rule. He wanted to create a world so terrified of conflict that it finally learned the value of quiet. To understand the man, we have to stop looking at the piercings and start looking at the ruins. We have to see the world through the eyes of the boy who realized that the hero only wins because he's the one left alive to write the history book. Close your eyes and listen. In the hidden rain village, the sky doesn't just leap, it mourns. This is a land defined by a constant, metallic downpour. A place where the scent of wet iron and industrial decay is the only air the lungs ever know. Imagine being a child whose entire world is vibrating with the low, rhythmic bass of distant artillery. Amegakuri was actually a buffer zone, a wet corridor between three great nations who used it as a convenient graveyard for their egos. For Nagato, survival wasn't a choice, it was a sensory overload. The squelch of military boots in the mud outside his hiding spot wasn't a sound of rescue, it was the sound of an ending. By the time he watched his parents die at the hands of the good shinobi, who simply made a mistake, the concept of kindness was already a foreign language. When your baseline is the sound of pipes rattling and the sight of your home being used as a doormat, peace becomes an abstract fantasy. He understood early on that the world isn't shaped by dreams, but by the physical reality of who is holding the kunai and who is bleeding in the mud. There is a specific kind of trauma that occurs when an idealist realizes that the world has no room for his ideals. Nagato possessed the heart of a poet, but his environment demanded a monster. He, Yahiko, and Conan were the bridge to peace. They wanted to believe that if they just spoke loud enough, the great nations would listen. But diplomacy is a luxury of the powerful. When the Leaf's own Danzo conspired to crush their movement, Nagato was forced into an impossible corner. In the moment, Yahiko impaled himself on Nagato's blade. To save Conan, the poet died. What remained was a machine designed to process agony. This is the moment Nagato became the most ideologically consistent character in the series. He didn't just lose a friend, he lost the belief that the system could be fixed from the inside. He summoned the Gedo Mazo not out of a desire for evil, but out of a calculated need to make the world feel a fraction of the weight he carried. Pain's Masterplan was born of an observation of human history. He realized that peace is merely an interval between wars. As soon as a generation forgets the horror of the last conflict, they begin to hunger for the next one. His solution was the nuclear option. By gathering the tailed beast, he intended to create a weapon so catastrophic that it would force the world into a state of permanent hesitation. It is the shinobi version of mutually assured destruction. He wasn't building a bomb. He was building a time ours for humanity. His logic was simple, that if everyone has a gun pointed at their head, no one pulls the trigger. This wasn't a play for domination, it was a play for equilibrium. He knew that humanity wouldn't stop fighting. Because of a speech, they would only stop because they were too scared to move. By positioning himself as the ultimate bogeyman, He offered a peace built on fear, which he viewed as far more stable than a peace built on the fickle emotions of heroes. When pain descended upon the hidden leaf, he does so as a philosopher with a detonator. He stood in the center of the world's most powerful village and asks, "You talk about justice, but what about mine?" This is the point where his point of view becomes undeniable. The 5 great nations claim to represent order, but that order is built on the corpses of nations like the hidden rain. The Wheel of Fire is a beautiful sentiment, but it is a luxury that the Leaf Village bought with the blood of orphans. Pain was not looking for revenge. He believed that true empathy is impossible without shared experience. If the Hidden Leaf Village had never known the hunger and the rain of the outskirts, they could never truly want peace for everyone. By leveling the Hidden Leaf Village, he was leveling the moral playing field and not just destroying buildings, but he was destroying their sense of moral superiority. Underneath the mechanical coldness of the 6 paths, there was a man tethered to the world by a singular bond. He used Yahiko's body as his primary avatar, not as a trophy, but as a commitment. He refused to let his friend's dream die, so he literally gave that dream through his own eyes. Nagato had to kill his own capacity for joy to protect the legacy of the only people who ever loved him. Conan didn't follow a tyrant, she followed a man who was willing to damn his own soul if it meant no more children had to hide in the mud, thus making his violence an act of extreme, distorted protection. The resolution of Nagato's story is often seen as a defeat, but was it? Naruto offered a promise, a claim that he would find a better way. Nagato, who was tired and carrying the weight of 1,000 sins, chose to gamble on that hope. But as we look at the world that followed, we have to ask, did Naruto keep the promise? Or did he just delay the inevitable? Did the cycle of hatred actually end? Or did the world just find new ways to hide the rain? Nagato's hypothesis was that humanity only learns through trauma. Naruto's was that humanity can learn through faith. One is a realist, the other is a dreamer. Nagato wasn't a villain because he was wrong. He was a villain because he was the only one brave enough to tell the truth about how the world actually works. He sought to create a truth that was written in ashes, because in the end, every story has another side. And this was the Villain POV.